My name is Antoine Victor. I'm an instructor, I suppose, but I also run operations for my small group. We develop content, we teach courses, and do a little bit of consulting as well. My certifications, my education, and so forth is pretty broad. I was a finance major, so I like math, but maybe that's a little strong. I don't like math, but it was the path of least resistance. So I went that route, but I'm an IT geek. I like to play around with laptops and hardware and software and whatnot. I've been writing code since I was 8 years old. So about halfway through college, I got this job at an architectural firm doing drafting. And along the way, I started writing software to make things more efficient and easier. And they kept saying, hey, you saved us 10 grand, give yourself another $1 an hour. And I was like, there's something to this software thing. So I did software development for over a decade and started getting into conversations about how to optimize the software delivery pipeline. So that led to Agile and Scrum and some of the things that I do now with DevOps. So it kind of all sort of fits together. And because I manage this team, I have a little bit of additional knowledge on the business side, and I'm a serial entrepreneur, so it all kind of gels together.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure. Some of the places that I've worked in the past, or I've done these types of engagements, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, I spent 5 years there on a services contract through Lockheed Martin. And so I'm very intimately familiar with how the government works and the resistance to change that you experience there. So when I go into some of these larger organizations, like we did some stuff for the Department of Personnel and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and we start talking to them about Agile and optimizing their delivery pipeline, they're like, that'll never work here, we're the government. And I'm like, well, I understand your pain. I've done some work with the government, and so I can speak to them in a language that they understand, as opposed to just being a software guy trying to push a methodology on them. I tell stories. My thing is corny jokes. I hate it when we get into this death by PowerPoint monotony. And so when I start seeing the deer in the headlights look around the room, I'll tell them a corny joke. And it gets, for them, I think it gets old after a while, but the point is to not be funny. It's to make them stop playing with their phones and their laptops and say, wait a minute, that wasn't funny. They have to actually think about it for a second, and then you start getting the moans and the groans like, oh. And then I say, okay, time for another corny joke, and they're like, oh man, not again, but it makes them pay attention. So I can get them to engage, and then we can go back into the topic that maybe was starting to get a little bit dry. And also, rather than just giving them death by PowerPoint and teaching from the book, I like to tell a story about some project that I worked on in the past that addresses the issue that we're currently discussing. So if I can engage them by telling a kind of funny story that they can relate to because it's similar to their personal experience and it drives the point home as well, then that's a win for everybody, because it gets boring doing the same old presentation every time. You know, we do this stuff week after week, so you got to add a little spice in there.